No, we're not. We're not. Because the Grinch is trying to chase us away.
Yeah, we're defending Pine Crest.
Lincoln County, Wisconsin, population 28,000, is in turmoil. For over 70 years, the county has owned Pine Crest Nursing Home, which has served generations of working-class families. But now, the county board is working behind closed doors to sell Pine Crest to an undisclosed buyer, sparking outrage and an unlikely grassroots effort to save a community-owned nursing home in a deeply conservative part of the country. The lives of the 80-plus people living at Pine Crest and the future of Lincoln County are on the line. But their fight is also a stand against 40 years of the parasitic privatization of the public good, which has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of elderly Americans and the closing of nearly 700 nursing homes nationwide since 2020.
We're here about solutions for long-term care in Lincoln County that's accessible, affordable, high quality, right?
My name is Todd Frederick, and I lived in Lincoln County, Wisconsin, my entire life for 62 years. Pine Crest is extremely important to our community. It's the place that everyone has that can go, whether you can afford it or not. And it's always had extremely great care for the residents that are there. My mother worked there back in the 70s. My grandmother was a resident there in the 70s. My father was a resident there in 2019. He passed away there. It needs to continue to be a county-owned facility.
In the years before Medicare, communities across the country built their own nursing homes to take care of local senior citizens. Over the past 2 decades, for-profit corporate chains have bought many of them up and sent the quality of care spiraling.
I think it would be very concerning to have the county facility closed. They usually do provide better care. They have higher staffing levels. The nonprofits in general and public facilities spend more of their money on staff, more money on food, more money on activities, things that make life meaningful for people.
The Christmas parade float, meant to bring more attention to their protest, suffered a few technical difficulties, but the sacrifices being made by volunteers is obvious. They've also participated in a Labor Day parade, made local news, and have filled up every county board meeting possible. It's a public issue, but also a very personal one.
Well, my name is Dora Gorski, and I was born in Merrill here in Lincoln County.
Dora's husband, Ken, has lived a remarkable life. After serving in the Korean War, he was one of the first Americans to learn the martial art of Aikido in Japan. When he came to Lincoln County, he owned a dojo, and his teaching made him an essential part of the community.
He was still teaching a little bit, but it became noticeable that his memory was not as good. They would ask him questions about his history in Japan, and he wasn't always remembering the details, and it soon became evident that he was suffering from some dementia. And then about a year ago, he got COVID, and really became quite weak. They had a social worker that was in charge of his case, and they contacted the people at Pine Crest. And thankfully, the woman who was in charge of admittance at Pine Crest, her husband and her children had taken Aikido from Ken. And she managed to find a place for him, and within the week, he was in Pine Crest. They think of things that he needs, and they talk to him so kindly, and they have been just angels.
The county board hasn't offered us any idea what they're going to do if they sell it. We don't know what's going to happen with the residents that are there. We're assuming that they'll take care of them up until a time where they can find a place for them to go. We don't know if they'll be accepting Medicaid like we do now.
In a recent report about the pandemic, New York Attorney General Letitia James described a nursing home near Buffalo that had been county-owned, then sold with disastrous results.
It was sold in 2014 and then was renamed. And then immediately, when the new owners came in, this for-profit company, they cut the staff from 298 to 225. And so, of course, the care problems soared immediately. The facility 2 years later, just 2 years after the sale, was named by the federal and state government as one of the worst in the state, and it had a fine. Then it was put on what's called the Special Focus Facility List, a federal designation for approximately 88 facilities with very, very poor records. In 2018, 4 years after the sale, the Attorney General criminally charged the owner and the licensee and various business partners. And the company pleaded guilty to a felony, and they pleaded misdemeanors.
If the quality of care is so much higher at public-owned homes, then why is the board so dead set on selling Pine Crest? It's the culmination of a long-term ideological project that Dora foresaw when she ran for office back in 2016.
I knew that the county supervisor that was taking care of my district was for selling Pine Crest. This is like 6 years ago. And the main thing I talked about when I went door to door asking people to vote for me was I was telling them that I did not want to see Pine Crest being sold. And I understood that there were people who did. And that if they voted for me, I was going to do what I could to stop that from happening.
The board shored up the nursing home's finances and all seemed well, until the 2022 election, when a Republican slate spent big and took control.
That group is what's making all of this happen. They got their own little group elected to take control of the county board. Their objective from the beginning was to sell off or eliminate anything that isn't mandated. And they still haven't to this day given us a reason why, other than maybe saving a few pennies here and there.
One supervisor, I understand, asked, well, can't we get rid of welfare? I'm afraid that's a mandated service.
The board majority ran on shrinking government. Then they began cutting public services. First was Lincoln County's connection with the University of Wisconsin and the many opportunities and functions it provided residents.
They were doing a lot of things in the county. They had agriculture, they had the 4-H, educational classes, all types of things.
It includes the fairgrounds programs where the kids come in with their animals to display them at the fair. Well, that caused quite a fuss, and somehow or another they managed to save it.
Locals saved 4-H by packing the county council meetings and making appeals through the media. However, it was a consolation prize, as the board voted to stop funding the other programs.
I think the county board went and said, okay, well, we'll keep this little bit of money in there, and that'll appease everybody, and that's what they did. So they really didn't listen to the people that showed up. The same thing happened with Pine Crest. When they started doing that, we had Pine Crest residents that showed up at a board meeting. There were well over 200 people. In fact, there were so many people that couldn't fit into the boardroom. We were outside the room, basically telling them, don't sell Pine Crest. Don't sell Pine Crest. They didn't listen.
Board Chair Don Frisky, a former Republican state legislator, is doing everything he can to sell Pine Crest, even as his rationale disappears.
There was a survey that was put on by the local papers both in Tomahawk and Merrill, and 83% of the respondents were in favor of keeping the nursing home county-owned, even if it meant raising property taxes.
After the survey results became clear, the board voted not to let residents vote on the idea. One former board member and activist opposed to the sale is now recruiting candidates to run in April's county elections against the board members who still want to sell Pine Crest. One was an eager recruit.
It's driven some of us to actually run for office. I'm run for county board. We have several other folks that are going to run for county board. My wife's going to run for city council. It's time for us to start making a difference. And I'm hoping that by us doing that, it'll draw other folks to the same conclusion. We need to bring these discussions up so that everyone's talking about them in a positive way. What are we doing to save this? What are we doing to change things? What can we do to make it better? That's what we want to bring.
Thank you so much for watching our video. If you'd like to see more stories like this one, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have any ideas for stories that you would like for us to investigate, just drop them in the comments below.